If you have few friends, or perhaps none that feel truly close, you may have found yourself quietly wondering what that says about you. Not in a harsh or self critical way, but in those gentle moments when comparison slips in. You notice how easily others seem to move through social circles, how naturally connection appears to form for them, and you sense that you're moving at a different pace. In those moments, it can feel tempting to assume that something is missing, that you should want more, or that you're meant to be different in some way. But there is another way to understand this experience, one that doesn't begin with the idea of something being wrong, but with the possibility that your inner world follows a different rhythm. Some people are oriented less toward frequency and visibility, and more toward meaning and depth. When that's the case, the usual patterns of social life can feel strangely unsatisfying, even when nothing is outwardly unpleasant. You may notice this most clearly in conversation. An exchange can be polite, friendly, even warm on the surface, yet leave you feeling subtly tired or disconnected afterward. You were present, listening, responding, but something essential remained untouched. It isn't boredom, and it isn't discomfort. It's more like the sense that the interaction didn't reach the part of you that feels most alive. Often, there is a quiet sensitivity behind this. You tend to notice details others pass over without much thought. Shifts in tone, pauses. The emotional space between words. You sense when someone is speaking from habit rather than presence, or when connection is maintained out of convenience instead of care. You don't necessarily judge this, but you feel it, and carrying that awareness through repeated interactions can become tiring over time. Because of this, you may find yourself gradually pulling back, not abruptly and not with resentment, but slowly and instinctively. You choose fewer interactions. You allow more space between encounters. From the outside, this can look like distance. From the inside, it often feels like relief. Solitude becomes a place where you don't have to stay alert or translate yourself. It's quieter there, and that quiet has value. You may also notice that your curiosity leans toward conversations that explore rather than skim. You're drawn to understanding why people think the way they do, what shapes their emotional responses, and how inner experiences unfold. When dialogue stays on the surface, it can feel like standing near something deeper without being invited in. Without that invitation, your engagement naturally fades. This doesn't mean you don't care about people. In many cases, it means the opposite. You care enough to want presence rather than performance. You want to feel that someone is truly there with you, not simply filling silence. When that kind of connection isn't available, being alone can feel more honest than remaining half-connected. Another layer of this experience shows up in how your energy responds to social interaction. Even time spent with people you like can leave you feeling depleted afterward. Not because anything went wrong, but because your attention was fully engaged. You were listening deeply, noticing emotional cues, and staying attuned to the flow of the exchange. That level of awareness requires energy, and once it's spent, your system asks for rest. You may notice that after social time, you need quiet to return to yourself. Silence helps your thoughts settle and your emotional balance restore. This need for solitude isn't a rejection of others. It's a way of caring for your inner equilibrium. Over time, this pattern can shape how many relationships you maintain. You may not feel the urge to keep in touch simply for the sake of continuity or expectation. When connection doesn't feel mutual or meaningful, you allow it to loosen naturally. This isn't indifference. It's selectivity guided by self-awareness. You recognize that your energy is limited and you've learned to invest it where it feels steady and sincere. There is often a strong sense of independence woven into this way of being. You are comfortable with your own thoughts. Time alone doesn't automatically feel empty or lacking. You reflect, imagine, observe. Your inner world provides movement and texture even when your outer life appears quiet. Because you can meet many of your own emotional needs, connection becomes a choice rather than a necessity. You may also notice that validation from others doesn't carry the same weight for you as it does for some people. Appreciation is welcome, but it isn't essential to your sense of balance. You trust your internal sense of direction. You can sit with uncertainty, evaluate your experiences privately, and come to your own understanding without constant reassurance. From the outside, this can look like reserve. From the inside, it often feels like stability. At the same time, this independence tends to bring a thoughtful approach to trust. You don't open quickly, not because you're closed off, but because you're attentive. You watch how people behave across different situations. You notice whether care remains present over time, whether respect shows itself in small, unremarkable moments. You allow space for consistency to reveal itself. This slower pace can mean that friendships take longer to form, but when they do, they tend to feel grounded and dependable. Because of this, your circle often remains small, not as a deliberate strategy, but as a natural outcome of how you relate. You don't seek to collect people or fill space. You encounter individuals, and only a few encounters settle into something lasting. At times, this can feel isolating, particularly when you want understanding more than company. Yet even then, there's often a quiet sense that forcing closeness would feel more unsettling than waiting. You may also experience emotions with a certain depth and continuity. Feelings don't pass through you quickly. They stay long enough to be examined, felt, and understood. This depth can make connection feel meaningful, but it can also make it demanding. When you're with others, you're not only responding to what's happening externally, you're also aware of what's unfolding within you. Holding both at once requires care and space. Solitude provides that space. In quiet moments, you can process what you've absorbed without pressure. Reflection allows your inner world to settle and realign. This isn't withdrawal, it's regulation. Without these moments, things can begin to feel crowded internally, even if your external life remains calm. Over time, a steady sense of self-trust grows from this rhythm. You learn to rely on your own timing. You don't rush yourself into closeness simply because it's expected. You allow relationships to unfold naturally at a pace that feels sustainable. This patience isn't passivity, it's respect for yourself and for others. It acknowledges that depth can't be hurried. Gradually, it may become clearer that having few friends doesn't reflect a lack of connection, but a particular way of relating. You value presence over proximity, understanding over familiarity. This approach may lead to quieter seasons, but it also preserves the integrity of your inner life. When connection does arrive within this space, it often feels steady rather than dramatic. There is room to be yourself without explanation, to speak honestly without adjusting your tone, to share silence without discomfort. These moments may be infrequent, but they resonate deeply because they align with who you are. And as you hold all of this together, there may be a growing sense that your experience isn't about missing something others have. It's about honoring something within you that asks for depth, sincerity, and room to breathe. That request may guide you along a less crowded path, but it also allows you to remain connected to yourself. And within that connection, there is a quiet sense of coherence, one that doesn't need to be justified or reshaped, only understood.